Retirement Tips Radio is brought to you by Business RadioX, the voice of business in your community. Currently serving over 25 markets, the Business RadioX network is growing fast. We're teaming up with retired execs and established entrepreneurs to support and celebrate local business leaders. If you'd like to make additional income while making a difference, discover more at brxteam.com. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Retirement Tips Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Renee Cohen with Northwestern Mutual. Welcome, Renee.
Thank you, Lee. Nice to meet you.
Well, before we get too far into things, tell us about your work at Northwestern Mutual. How are you serving folks?
Yeah, I have been with the firm for a few years, quite a while now, but, underneath the Northwestern Mutual umbrella, it really is as a financial planner. It is, I really serve people nationally. I'm here based in Los Angeles, but I serve people nationally and really, again, really help people have a healthy mindset around their money and accumulating their dollars, but also regardless of where they are on their financial journey, is to have the retirement distribution strategy in place. So making sure that they're setting themselves up for success earlier on in their years. So when they get further down their financial journey in their life, that they are, they have options and flexibility.
Because that's something that people may not think about. They might spend a lot of their energy in accumulating wealth and accumulating, but at some point they have to take the money out. What are some strategies around that distribution regarding, creating that cash flow for them to live the life they want?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think to your point, I think a lot of times we are conditioned to just think about wealth accumulation, and that may mean something different to all of us, or depending on our lifestyle, where we live, what our family structure is. But very rarely do we think about, I actually have to live off of these dollars. So there has to be a strategy in place to distribute those dollars. And so I really help people think about just putting their money into different buckets and to think about it in different sections. And what I mean by that is there's going to be some maybe fixed income sources. And that's the Social Security, pensions. If anyone, happens to work for a company these days that still offer a pension, Social Security, which is always, a hot topic around really, is it going to, how much am I really going to get? But looking at those fixed income sources and then to really bucket their dollars into what are their variable sources of income. And that's really what you can cultivate on your own and where you can save dollars throughout your wealth accumulation years. I think it takes a lot more skill to distribute your dollars than actually accumulating dollars, because I think when we are working, even if we're in our 20s and we think that, retirement is so far off and it feels like lifetime away. And then as we're marching on through the decades and maybe we have a little bit more clarity and awareness around it, we still have, I think people really still have that inherent thought, well, I'm going to continue to work. I'm still making money. So there's a little bit of a comfort or a safety net just from a mindset perspective. It's really when people are knocking on the door of their 50s and 60s and beyond, where they're like, okay, this is something that I really have to think about. So it really is, how have you accumulated your dollars and what kind of diversification do you have or have you thought about? So I think one thing that a lot of people, we've also been conditioned to think about is, if you're working in the corporate setting, it's like, I have a 401k. Yeah, I'm saving for retirement and I'm maybe checking off the box there. But a lot of people don't realize, maybe we've heard it along the way at some point, but maybe it hasn't really fully registered, is that dollars in your 401k are 100% taxed at ordinary income tax rates, and we certainly don't know what our tax rates are going to be in the future. So if you want to think about or feel more comfortable, or most people are going to say, when I ask the question, do you want to pay taxes now or later, they're going to want to pay taxes now, just because of the unknown around tax rates. We're living in a moment where we've seen these stimulus packages because of coronavirus, and rightfully so. We needed to really kind of help stimulate the economy and help people in this situation, but we are going to have to pay for that at some point. So you don't want all of your dollars in taxable, to be taxed. And I think when I phrase the question to people, do you want Uncle Sam to be your partner in retirement? When I usually phrase that question to people, that's when they kind of realize, like, wait, I don't want Uncle Sam to be my primary partner in retirement. So it really is about diversification and having a combination of different buckets of money, some that are taxable. The 401k dollars, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that you don't want that to be the only key on the piano that you're playing and your only nest egg. You want to have some dollars that are not going to be taxable to you in distribution as well.
Now, I think this is what makes it hard for the layperson out there, and why it is so important to work with somebody to kind of be a Sherpa through this, because there's so many unknowns. Like, you don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know if you're going to be healthy for what period of that time. Back in the day, they thought 65 was the number that people were kind of winding down. Now that number is kind of thrown out the window. Back in the day, there used to be interest rates that were much higher, that you can rely on some more kind of safer, fixed financial resources to help you through this. And now the stock market's, going crazy and throwing off great returns. So it's hard for a layperson to kind of manage all of these unknowns to come up with some sort of a strategy that makes sense. That's why I would imagine your business is doing well, in terms of people need help to do this, and they've realized it's too complex.
Certainly, and I think the situation and the economic environment that we're living in has highlighted for a lot of people, especially for people that are closer to retirement, that they do need help. I think the last 11 years, when we have been in the bull market, I don't want to say people got complacent, but I think it's very easy to intellectually know that the stock market is going to have its ups and downs. But I don't know if we, really felt that. We certainly had bumps along the way the last 11 years, but it really wasn't until obviously March of 2020, when we had this unexpected, unforeseen event, where it really it made people pause and think about it, and what their strategy is. And if you're close or in retirement, how do I have safe dollars? What can I do to protect myself, that if I'm close to retirement or in retirement, there's going to be another unexpected market moving event. What do I do to make sure that I'm prepared for that? And so in these last few months, for that particular, market of people, it really is, where are they at right now? What are their resources? What are their assets that they have currently on their balance sheet? And do we have to think about things in a different way? Do we shift based on maybe where they're at in their career journey? Are they winding down or close to winding down? Or is their income at the level of, are they past their peak, and their income is a little bit lower right now? So does it make sense to start shifting some of those, either traditional IRA dollars or 401k dollars into, a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, just so we have some time to build some tax-free dollars? Looking at their investment accounts, if they have those investment accounts, and seeing what makes sense to either reallocate, their allocation, and making sure that they are aligned with the right risk portfolio. So in the last few months, it really is to make sure that people have a strategy in place, and that each of their assets on their balance sheet don't just sit in a silo, and that they have a comprehensive strategy. And everyone is going to be different. I mean, there's obviously overall arching strategies and things that you can do to help people, but everyone's situation is so unique. So there obviously is no cookie cutter way to do things for people.
Right. And it's one of those things where you have to, this isn't a set it and forget it. When I was, 60, I put my plan in place. So I haven't looked at it since. This is something you got to revisit, because you could have kind of a core strategy, but you have to make tweaks along the way. There's just too much change occurring.
Absolutely. And I think it's always, it's important to looking at your plan and revisiting what your goals are, have your lifestyle, change, or, some family issues. And so I always like, especially in retirement, I think it's important to just to look at your plan and to see, are you on track? Is it still aligned with what your goals are and the income and your lifestyle that you need? At least every 6 months. And then, in a situation like we're living in now, when, March 2020, if we were having this conversation in January of 2020, we said, okay, well, we've put a good, plan in place. Let's revisit this and just, see if we need to make any tweaks in June of 2020. Certainly, when we had this conversation in January, we wouldn't have expected March to have happened to the degree that, that the market obviously reacted. So, in a moment like that, then it's always important to is to get on the phone and to revisit that plan and say, okay, should we stay the course or do we need to make any tweaks? And I think that as a financial planner is really what is the value of the partnership. It's not only helping someone with the strategy, but it's also the behavioral coaching and around not making the rash decisions that most people make when it comes to their money that can negatively impact them, because the fear is what sets in, and we make short-term decisions around that fear.
Now, do you find that your role is more holistic than even just the financial part? Well, the financial part may take up a lot of your conversation time. Are you getting to know, like, what does your client really want to accomplish? What legacy do they want to leave? What kind of impact do they want to make in the world? Is that some of the conversations you're having as well, or is it strictly about the money?
Oh, it's absolutely holistic. I mean, money is, money is a tool that helps to serve someone's needs, goals, and allows them to have that flexibility and optionality in their life. And again, that means going to mean something different to every single person. But my conversations and my relationships with people it's holistic. It's very hard for money to just sit in the silo of like, this is my financial life. Your financial life touches your personal life. It touches your professional life. And I think the new generation of financial planners have to be holistic. It is very hard to be just the financial person and say, okay, well, let me get you some rates of return on your investment accounts and not really care about, or I don't, maybe not to retract the word care, but to have those conversations as to how does that fit into someone's overall picture and what they're looking to accomplish. To me, that's the most important piece, and the strategic part of your financial life, or what I can do and lend my expertise and for someone, is to understand what's most important to them, and then to marry that with the right financial vehicles and tools that can best serve them now for their midterm years, and then certainly their long-term years, well into their retirement distribution years.
I would imagine that some of your clients in their head, they're like, okay, I know the retirement's here, and on this day I'll retire, and I'll be at playing golf, or I'll be fishing, I'll be doing whatever. And then that comes and they realize that, they need more. There's more to life than just relaxing. Do you help them kind of work through those conversations? Because that might require a reallocation of energy, funds, and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times when people are, we're approaching retirement, I think their mindset around it, and you can have some clarity as to what your life may look like, maybe what are your fixed expenses at that point, But to your point, I mean, life is it's not linear. So I think the vision, and what the expectations that people have for their retirement life is usually different than when they're actually living their retirement life. I think the biggest thing, misconception is that, oh, when I'm in retirement, my tax rate will be lower. I'll be living off of less dollars. And that's being proven over and over again that that's just not the case. One is our lifestyle is still, most people are going into retirement with the same lifestyle, and having expenses that are a little bit more, because now you do have the flexibility to travel, more. Family situations are, I find a lot with my retirees is that they're still either supporting children in some capacity, even if they're adult children. They want to help fund either, helping towards a down payment for their child's first home, or helping to fund grandchildren's, education. So there are a lot of different factors. And so I always have the conversation as to what do we know our fixed expenses are going to be, and then help to, inflate that to some degree so we can give them that flexibility. And certainly once you're in retirement, or even closer to retirement, or living in your retirement life, it is the tweaking, because your vision is going to change, and your lifestyle is going to change. And the worst thing is that, yeah, you happen to be living off of less dollars, and so you may not need as much as we forecasted, right? That could be the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario is that you're like, oh yeah, I don't need this, and this is what we'll be living, and this is what we will need. And then you feel restrictive in retirement. So it's really important to have those conversations. And I like to help people visualize what do you want for life, regardless of the money. How do you see yourself living retirement without the restrictions of, paying for, your fixed expenses, any discretionary expenses? What do you want from life? And then really be able to have, fine tune that in a realistic, plan for that.
Now, in your practice, do you have a sweet spot in terms of who you serve?
Yeah, I think my sweet spot is people that are in their peak earning years. So typically, as they're entering their 40s, really through their 60s. I don't work with a lot of people that are over 75, but a lot of people that are living in their retirement are actually some of my clients' parents, that I think, earlier on in their years, they may have had maybe an investment manager that, they had some, portfolios, and they had a stockbroker that was helping them pick some, investments, but they didn't really have a strategy. And so now that they're living in their retirement life, having a strategy is important. So I really like helping people that are, in the peak earning years, because I think that they have more awareness. Around, okay, this is, I'm reaching that pinnacle. At that point, they probably have a lot of competing financial priorities, home costs, school, education for the kids, just lifestyle and all those things. But they have that desire and awareness that, they need to have a strategy in place. And so I really love seeing that kind of, the full circle of that. And then really helping, again, people in close or in retirement, is to be able to, strategize with them as to where their life is, where do they want their life to be, and to tweak really what they have on their balance sheet to, either help them be more, at this point, it's really helping them be more tax efficient. Because I really see a lot of times people, the bulk of their assets on their balance sheet at that point are in traditional IRAs, 401ks, and they don't realize, one, the required minimum distributions that they'll need to take if they, are turning 72 this year. But, prior to the Secure Act last year, you just start taking required minimum distributions at 70 and a half. But, it's just being able to really be tax efficient and really hedge yourself against, the market volatility. So I think, it's intellectually, we know it, but sometimes we don't always appreciate it. But as the decades march on, we have an increasing appreciation for safe dollars.
Now, if you were to give a piece of advice of somebody that's approaching retirement, would it be to focus on some of this, like be mindful of the tax ramifications, or is it to kind of diversify and have these different buckets?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I think tax efficiencies at this point is going to be your best bet because it is painful to write a large check to Uncle Sam, in your retirement when you don't, when that is what you're living off of. So tax diversification is utmost important, and that is looking at your assets and looking at the traditional IRAs and starting to shift dollars into what's called a Roth conversion. Start to convert some of those dollars. Really look at your investment portfolios and see what allocations and how you can shift and reposition some dollars into safer dollars. But the tax efficiencies is most important. And I think within that is tax diversification is most important. And I think within that, then it's having the different buckets around, diversification around where to, the buckets of money and where they are, your fixed income sources. Yes, we may get some Social Security, and that's nice to have. Maybe it's the cherry on top. Did you work for a company that you have a pension? And if not, then, here's a Social Security. What are other sources that we may have towards fixed income? And then, looking at your variable sources is really being tax efficient with them.
Now, if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team, what's the website or best coordinates?
Yeah, the best way is to email me, and that is my first name, which is Renee, my last name, which is Cohen, at N as in Nancy, M as in Mary.com. So that is Renee.Cohen at nm.com. Or I always take phone calls, which is 310-402-3100. So whether that's a phone call or a text, like these days, phones are completely attached to you.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for sharing your story, and congratulations on all your success. We appreciate how you're serving folks and helping them through this kind of transitional time.
Well, thank you, Lee. I appreciate having the conversation, and I appreciate the work that you are doing to bring these conversations to light for people to help them.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Retirement Tips Radio.
Retirement Tips Radio is brought to you by Business RadioX, the voice of business in your community. Currently serving over 25 markets, the Business RadioX network is growing fast. We're teaming up with retired execs and established entrepreneurs to support and celebrate local business leaders. If you'd like to make additional income while making a difference, discover more at brxteam.com.